How's it going, guys? Once again, it's your man JT coming at you with another video here. Gonna discuss some of my winners and losers for free agency. Although the period is not really over, still some pretty decent names out there, especially running backs, and some defensive players still on the board. Most of the big news in free agency has come and gone. A lot of the players have signed or are close to signing, and so now I'm going to go over some of the teams that I felt did a really good job in free agency and some of the ones that I felt struggled here. First of all, for winners, I would say basically the entire AFC East. I thought the Patriots made several really good trades without giving up a whole lot. They picked up Dwayne Allen, they picked up Coney Ealy, and of course picking up Brandon Cooks for a first and third round pick. They also get a fourth rounder back in that deal. And so the Patriots truly look loaded and ready to compete for yet another Super Bowl here. And it's going to be very tough in that AFC for anyone to really give a fair fight to the Patriots. I'm interested to see, maybe as a Dolphin fan, not interested, but it will be interesting to see how Brandon Cooks fits into that offense alongside Amendola, if Gronkowski will be able to come back, and how Brady looks in probably his last 2 or 3 years. So they are definitely making a push. I felt like the Jets, while it's easy to laugh at them, and I probably will, and they're probably going to struggle very much so these next couple of years, really it's a smart approach. You're talking about the Bills, Dolphins, and Patriots are all way ahead of you as it is right now. As I said, Brady probably has about 2 or 3 years left in his career, so that gives you time to kind of rebuild and get some young talent. So they got rid of a lot of veterans, Brandon Marshall and Mangold, Revis, trying to trade Richardson apparently. Some people calling it a suck for Sam Darnold kind of approach, and maybe they will end up with a number 1 pick or a top 5 pick next year again, and perhaps take a quarterback either in this year or in next year's draft. But ultimately, kind of that full-blown, get rid of everybody, start new, rebuild tends to be the best chance. It doesn't always work, but there are a lot of cases of it working throughout sports, and so I do think it's a good decision. Bills, hard to call them a winner because they didn't have a lot of money, so in return they couldn't make a lot of moves, but I felt like the moves they did make were kind of very much Bills moves. They spent some money on a fullback. I believe they picked up a linebacker as well. I'm not exactly sure his name, but just moves to kind of keep it going. And the reason I'll give them a win is because it felt like they had a sense of direction, that they are trying to be kind of this ground and pound and defense team under Sean McDermott. And so we will see how that goes. And then the Dolphins they were able to keep Kenny Stills and Andre Branch. I felt like that was, kind of a big thing for them, as I made a video about. And they made up a few solid, pickups. Julius Thomas, Anthony Fasano to help out the tight end position, Lawrence Timmons. So again, I thought that the whole AFC East really did a good job. The Tennessee Titans would also be a winner in my book. I felt like even the trade for Jonathan Cyprien, who struggled sometimes in Jacksonville, still another good value pickup. They're in the running for Hightower. They, of course, have 2 first-round picks. And so I think if they continue to play their cards right this offseason, they should be the favorites to win that division, depending on what the Texans do at the quarterback position here. Speaking of, I would also call the Texans a winner. Just getting out of that Brock Osweiler deal, yeah, it cost you some draft picks, but ultimately that's what you needed to do. I would advise them from taking Tony Romo. I think you can just maybe go get a quarterback in free agency and probably draft one at the 25th place in this year's draft. There should probably be a few quarterbacks available. But of course, if they do end up with Tony Romo, that's understandable. The Browns, I would actually also, in that same deal, of course, for Brock Osweiler, some people may laugh at it, but Brock's not the future for them. They want the 2nd and the 6th-round draft pick that they picked up, and they're basically paying $16 million for 1 year in a year that they're not going to compete anyway. And also, when they did spend money, they spent it at the right position on the offensive line. Joel Bianchi, something like that, signed a big deal, and then of course Zettler went there as well, highest paid guard ever. So You know, they spend money at the right spot, being that offensive line for whoever the quarterback is. And then, of course, they were able to pick up some draft picks by taking on Brock Osweiler's contract. And lastly, I would probably say the Eagles are definitely a winner in this one. Sometimes you have to be careful of spending money in free agency and trying to be off-season champs, but the Eagles really did need some help at wide receiver. Alshon Jeffrey 1 year kind of prove it to me deal I felt was solid. Torrey Smith definitely not the best wide receiver, but at the same time I felt like the contract he got was pretty fair, and you know, will help Carson Wentz out quite a bit. Some of my losers for free agency, however, would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. And some people may call them a winner. Some people may like the moves. I don't. I've just seen this multiple times with the Jaguars. They're probably at this time, four-time off-season champions, and yet they've still continued to struggle. Now, it is a new head coach, you know, just promoted from within, however, and Tom Coughlin's there. But, you know, Calais Campbell, that's a lot of money for defensive end that hopefully he can work out. I did like A.J. Boye. I got to admit that. Even though that's a lot of money, you know, him and Jalen Ramsey could really make a good cornerback duo. So we'll see. But this approach of spending a ton of money in free agency is not new to Jacksonville, and it hasn't resulted in a lot of wins. And when you look at a lot of the winning organizations, the Steelers, the Packers, even the Falcons this year, you know, recently, a lot of these teams tend to be pretty quiet. You know, Seahawks, they don't make a lot of moves in free agency. They just make moves that need to be done. You know, Seahawks, what do they need? They need offensive line. They got Luke Jokel. I think it was a couple $1 million, and yeah, he was kind of a bust, but he has first-round talent, you know, and there's still talent in him, and they're going to play him at guard, and no one even knows about it. And it probably makes their O-line better. So while it can be kind of fun to see a lot of these big names come off the board and, you know, big deals get done, it doesn't necessarily have the best track record. So I don't know for Jacksonville if they necessarily had a good offseason or not. The Bears, I would also say, would have to be losers. I mean, I just felt like they got worse and, you know, lost some pieces. Like, I understand getting rid of Jay Cutler and not wanting to pay Alshon Jeffrey, but you didn't really replace him. And in the case of the quarterback position, you end up giving Mike Glennon a 3-year, $45 million deal. And I like Mike Glennon, but there's just no way you can look at that and say that that's a good contract for 3 years. It is the price of a starter, especially in the NFL now. And I guess if you think that's what he can be, then you know, then it's worth paying. But that's a lot of money for a guy who really had a short time in Tampa Bay and has spent the last season as a backup to Jameis Winston. So we'll see there. And then, of course, I would say the Washington Redskins would be losers in this free agency period. An eventful offseason. They see their GM get fired. They lose Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon. They were able to pick up Terrell Pryor. I think that was a nice pickup, especially just a 1-year, $8 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. But then they have the whole situation with Kirk Cousins not really wanting to stay, wanting to be traded, because they're not really wanting to give him a long-term deal. They want to just keep tagging him for the second year in a row. And so there's a big conflict there. And, you know, will he end up getting traded to a place like San Francisco? Or even if he doesn't get traded, is he just going to show up, kind of do his job for a year, and then head to San Francisco anyway when he's a free agent next year? So it's kind of a, you know, bad times in Washington, and hopefully for their sake they can kind of get it straightened out and get on the right path and, you know, figure out what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins and hopefully, you know, continue to replace talent at the wide receiver position. But we will see. So yeah, that's just some of my opinions on the free agency period and the offseason. Let me know your winners and losers, and how did your team do? What's your favorite pickup for your squad this offseason? And I will see you later.